You're listening to Keys for Farewell. This is where one great question sparks a whole new conversation. I'm your host, Katlyn Green Johnson. I'm an apprentice funeral director and apprentice embalmer here at Anderson Funeral Home under the direction of our owner, Damon Hobbs. In this episode, we're going to do something just a little bit different. We are discussing questions that have been submitted and questions that are asked frequently here in the funeral home. So these are asked at random. Let's see if I can keep up.
How can I tell if someone is close to death?
How can you tell if someone is close to death? At the end of life, we see general slowing down of functioning. From my background with aging, dying, and hospice, I can tell you that I used to explain it to families like this. The physical indicators tell us whether a person has months, maybe weeks, or days. Past that, we can't really know the moment when somebody will die. First, I typically say that we see a slowing of functions like eating, and we're looking for things like total incontinence. After that, a person will typically be bedbound and lose the ability to ambulate independently. You'll see that as the person is nearing death, things like breathing changes and color changes signal the start of what we call sitting vigil. This is when we call the family in. This is when people come from far away to come see somebody. This is when we sit around the clock with them. And it's a beautiful, beautiful time.
How do I cope with fear of dying or losing someone?
It's quite common to fear death. Most of us do, whether it's your own death or maybe it's somebody that you love. It's fearful to think about it because it's the unknown, right? There's several kinds of grief that include this type of anticipation. Maybe you've had a loved one that suffers from dementia or Alzheimer's. That's a feeling like you're losing them little by little. A little bit more every day. But really, every person's story is different. What is similar in doing it successfully or walking through it is openness. You don't have to be perfect because none of us are perfect, but you can be intentionally present. So to be in the moment with your person, be in the moment when you process your emotions, sometimes helps with that fear, that anxiety. The unknown or how we perceive things causes fear, and sometimes our perceptions are inaccurate. I talk a lot about the media, television, radio, podcasts. A lot of these are just simply not how it works. Think CPR, for example. How you see it on television is not how it works. Best way to deal with anxiety or fear of death, be fear of a nursing home, fear of a funeral home, anything like that, is to take information with openness. I've got a lot of resources. If this sounds like you and you want to explore this a little bit, let me know.
Why do people grieve so differently?
That's a great question. Each person's experience is totally different because there's so many factors that build that story. So our relationship and our history with the person we lose plays into this a good deal. So does our coping skills, our age, how the person died, and our environment, the support system around us. That has a huge, huge impact on how we grieve. Sometimes grief gets better, it gets worse. Sometimes grief is different. A traumatic loss or sudden loss is just different than someone who has been sick for a long time and dies what seems to be slowly. People ask that all the time. What's worse, sudden death or long sickness? And the answer is both, I think. They're just totally different. And that's why people grieve so differently. How long does grief last? Don't let anybody tell you that it takes 1 year because it's just simply not true. Grief is something that you don't ever get over. It's not a cold. There is no remedy. It's something that you have to take your life and adjust it to something totally different. So it's not linear. There's not a timeline. It's not even really logical. Some days you'll be fine. You might even be happy, over the moon. And then other days, it'll hit you like a ton of bricks. Maybe it's a song, a smell, a certain day, a quiet room, a picture. There's something that'll bring it all back in an instant, and that happens over and over. So grief is more like having to repack your luggage so you can carry it, having to repack your bag so that it will fit as you go on with life. I like to think about it that way because then there's no box that you had to fit inside when you're grieving.
Is there a normal way to mourn?
A normal way to mourn. I don't think normal really exists, but especially in this context, it just doesn't work. What is normal? And you use the word mourn or mourning. Have you ever thought about the difference between grief and mourning? In the mortuary classes that I teach, I ask students to thoughtfully consider the differences because I tell them that the words we use matter. For example, think about bereavement. Why is it called bereavement time at work? That's because bereavement is the act, the celebration, or the event that signifies the loss. You're taking off work to attend something, whether it's like a memorial or a family gathering, maybe it's a burial, a meal, whatever it is. That's bereavement. Grief then is the impact and the feelings that we have internally that result from the loss. That's what we have to sit with and that we have to walk through, usually for the rest of our life. So then mourning is how we outwardly express it. Have you thought about in history why they're called Victorian mourning clothes? They had rules about how long to wear black. A widow would have different rules than a sister. If a child was lost, the mourning rituals were different. So, mourning is how we outwardly express it. Sometimes that's pretty cool to look at in history, and these rituals can be really personalized. People have all kinds of creative ways that show their inward expression. So, that part's pretty interesting for me.
How can I comfort someone who is dying?
How can you comfort someone who is dying? Oddly enough, many funeral directors and embalmers have never actually seen someone die. This is something we talk about in mortuary school a lot. But one of my favorite books is called Five Invitations. It's what death can teach us about living fully. And in this book, the author is talking to a mother of small children. And he says, "What do you do when your children are sick?" Here's her quote. She said, "I sit quietly by their bed. Sometimes I snuggle up to them. I speak less. I listen more. I let them know that I'm right there with them. I try to create a kind environment that is peaceful so they're not as afraid. I try to do simple things with great attention. I tell them it's okay that they're sick, that it won't last forever. But I've never helped the dying before. I just understand that. Isn't that good?" That was my favorite part of the book. Throughout the years, I keep coming back to that thought that how do you comfort somebody who's dying? How do you visit somebody who's struggling or maybe very sick? The milk of human kindness, right? One human to another. It doesn't have to be something wild or a grand gesture to show that you care. I love that she said, "I try to do simple things with great attention." That's back to we don't have to be perfect, but just being present helps. It's one of my favorite lessons from that book. I highly recommend it.
What is a memorial service versus a funeral service?
The primary difference between a funeral service and a memorial service is the presence of the actual body. A funeral service is typically shortly after the death because the body's present, but a memorial or celebration of life can be anytime. And sometimes it can be repeated. You see candlelight vigils that may be held annually for a cause or for a person. So again, customized, right? The personalization is really neat. That's one of my favorite things about funeral service. What's the next question?
Can you have a funeral without religion?
Mm. This is actually, if you research this question, I get asked this quite a bit, but this is one of the top internet searches about death and funeral, the rights and the wrongs. Yeah, you can absolutely have a funeral without a formal eulogy or a religious sermon. Funerals are highly customized. And that's what helps us in the psychological processing is the personalization. You can opt for a secular service. You can focus on memories. You can use music, silent reflection. It can be a family member. It can be a celebrant. It could be a chaplain. It could be your preacher. What it's about is the person, what they believe, what they valued, and how that affects those that are left. Some of my favorite services have been about favorite things. I've had a service that when it was over, they had a crawfish bowl. That was fun. I've had a service that had all of the person's favorite music. That was cool. I've done services in different languages. I think that it's just beautiful to reflect the person and the family and the friends, reflect their values.
What happens during an open casket viewing?
Open casket viewing. Have you ever heard the joke, "You look casket ready"? You get really dressed up and you attend to every detail. I love that joke. It's great. Let me give you some insight into the world of a funeral home because there's a deeply significant thing that happens during an open casket viewing, and we carefully prepare for it, every minute detail. It's called The Last Look, and you can read about this in the textbooks, you can read about it in socials. This last look is really important because, yes, it's a physical thing, but it's also really emotional and it's profound. It can even be spiritual. It's that moment when you see your loved one at peace. You might notice that they don't look as sick. The strain of illness might be gone. You'll hear things like, well, she looks 10 years younger. Sometimes they even may look restful or happy, and there's a reason for this. Every little detail that we take care of is so that you see a calm and comforting image of the person you know and love. You are attached to that person. Our minds, especially in grief, hold a lot of memories. You'll have pictures in your mind about sickness, about struggle, about final days, and you can't unsee that. So the last look is meant to gently soften some of those images and give you one more memory to carry forward. It's one of peace. I love the peace of mind that I heard a family member say that my mama looked like mama. She didn't look like the dementia patient. She didn't look like she had lost so much weight. She didn't look gray in color from a cancer treatment or whatever it may be. Mama looked like mama. So these small things with great attention we do, whether it's presentation, outfit, embalming, setup, it's all professionally done and highly structured so that you have that last look. And that results in psychological processing of grief. Have you ever thought about a child that loses a parent? I tell my students, for the daughter standing at the casket, this might be the first day she has ever lived a day in her life without her mother. Now, that doesn't mean the relationship was perfect, right? Or for a child that has already lost a mother and now they lose the father, this is the first day that psychologically they feel like an orphan. This is heavy work. One of the things that we love to attend to is this last look because it is so helpful in processing.
What is the etiquette for attending a funeral?
Etiquette. This is a big question. This is a big question. I have people all the time come in and say, "Do I look okay? Are these shoes appropriate? Should I wear this? Should I say this? What do I do with my phone? Can I have this bottle of water?" All these little things. And you know what it's ultimately about? Being thoughtful and respectful. It's all about the person that's died and for those who are grieving. Really, it just takes your presence. That's what communicates that you care. You don't have to look perfect. You don't have to use perfect words. You don't have to do something super expensive. You don't even have to send flowers. Kindness, respect, and compassion. That might be, have you eaten today? Has anybody walked the dog for you? Here, I brought you a bottle of water and some tissues. That's the etiquette. It's about being thoughtful and respectful, whatever that means for the family. A lot of times, the person who dies has already set the tone. We have people that love music. They love classical music. So, what are we going to play? Classical music. We have others that love classic rock. Fantastic. Whatever it is, it's intentional. All right, these are getting hard. All right, what's the next one?
Should children attend funerals?
Well, children should never be traumatized, but they also shouldn't be automatically excluded. A lot of times, these decisions are about the adult's comfort or discomfort. If the adult doesn't like broccoli, their kids regularly aren't going to eat broccoli. It works the same way. It's about what the children are exposed to, and sometimes that parallels with what the adults are exposed to. Funerals can teach children and even adults that grief is a normal part of loving somebody, that families come together during these hard times and it's time well spent together. Very young children, your toddlers, your preschoolers, they don't understand the permanence of death. They don't quite understand the cause and effect yet, and they may need somebody to talk to them about it. I recommend very simple, very concrete language. And you may need to step out with them. It may be overstimulating. It may be a lot of people. It may be loud. It may not. It just depends. The idea is to expose them at the level that's best for them. When they get a little bit older, like school age children, they can often benefit from attending because they have you to explain what they will see. They're starting to develop this idea of what death is. And then in adolescence, through the teen years, we start to develop this sense of mortality. We understand the permanence. We understand the universality that everybody dies. We start to understand, and attending can be a good, important part of processing this grief. So, really, the prep work is the key. If you are going to bring a child, explain what a funeral is, what's about to happen. Tell them what the room might look like. Tell them that people may be crying, people may be laughing, and that both of them are okay. Tell them that whatever they feel is okay. If there's going to be an open casket, explain to them what the person will look like and that they will not be breathing or responding to them and why. Openness, being truthful, but not traumatizing. This is one of the things that I think we do well here at the funeral home because I'm available to talk to kids with their parents. We can sit down in the living room and talk about what they're going to see or maybe what they've just seen. And so let us help you. Talking to friends about death, talking to your kids, it can be uncomfortable, but it's also one of the most generous things you can do for them. When you speak about it openly, you remove the guesswork, you reduce their stress, even future stress. When you're thinking about those healthcare decisions and those living wills, reduce their future stress. Write something down, talk to them about it, give them the clarity and the hand on the back that they need. It's reinforcement. For example, during the pandemic, we saw a lot of grown children being asked when to take their parents off of a ventilator or off life support. The irony was they were not asked to put them on it. For those adult children that said, when we talked about it, my daddy said he would never want to be kept alive artificially. And if this ever happens, there's no quality of life. I am to let him go. That's reinforcement. That removes the guesswork. The same thing is about funeral. Now, parents of adult children, I will caution you, don't ask them to make promises they can't keep. If you want Brother Abel to speak at your funeral and he's 99 and 3/4, I may not be able to keep that promise. If you want congregational singing with 1,000 people, I can't make 1,000 people come and sing all 4 parts, right? Instead, people that are making their plans consider what their loved ones might need and give them a little room to work. But you also give them the backbone and the reinforcement not to second guess their decision. These are some great questions. I really appreciate those that submitted and those that are open to talking about this. Of course, I am always open to talk about it. You're welcome to any of my resources or any of the classes that I teach. As we close today's episode, we want to thank you for spending time with us. Conversations like this aren't always easy, but they matter. They matter because every life is a story that we want to honor. Here at Anderson Funeral Home, we are proud to be family owned and locally operated right here. Our roots run deep in this community. It isn't just where we work, it's where we live, it's where we worship, it's where we raise our families, it's where we stand beside our neighbors in joy and in trial. For generations, families have trusted Anderson Funeral Home to care for their loved ones. We attend to those details. That trust means everything to us, and it's a responsibility we carry humbly. If today's conversation sparked questions about planning ahead, navigating grief, or honoring somebody you love, we're always here to listen.